G'day, I'm comedian Dane Simpson, and earlier this week, one of my childhood heroes was tweeting some dodgy memes about voting no in the upcoming referendum. So I thought we'd sit down together, have a bit of a yarn and dispel that misinformation that's getting around out there. But I couldn't do it alone, so I thought I'd bring my own constitutional lawyer.
Hey bro, it's not the first time I've bailed yet.
This is Eddie Synot, Wamba Wamba Man. Let's get into it. Massive fan. When I grew up watching you on the TV, hearing your songs. My uncle is a singer as well, Uncle Jimmy Little, and sings similar songs to what you did.
Yeah.
Huge fan. And I've read on your Twitter lately that you're undecided about the voice to Parliament.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought that maybe we could sit down, have a chat, maybe
sure.
clear up some ideas, or maybe you've got some questions.
Yeah.
And we can have a talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think this whole idea, whether I understand it or not, where a group of people, a race of people, have been addressed as somebody a little different. Yeah. Whereas fundamentally, in other words, we're all, in the eyes of the law, equal.
Yeah.
But how do you explain that? Meaning, for me, if I had my choice, yes, I would give them additional attention, culturally, and what's the word when you give them the proper diet? Whether their own diet is sufficient, I don't know. So culturally, you can have a set of values, you grow up with it, and depending what's available, you eat that, and you make special foods, and fish or fowl or whatever. And then you learn a language, you become a group, you're isolated, nobody else interferes with you. And then in this case, suddenly, 200 years ago, suddenly white guys come and they want to wipe you out. So the thing is, for the people who survived, if the white man had their way, they would have liked to have wiped out the black race. If they could have, they would have. But fortunately, the indigenous people survived. And I'm embarrassed that I didn't know till Monday or Tuesday that till 1967 they were considered not human. I can't.
And that's not even that long ago. That affects my mum and my dad as well, I think the other thing is that, we're moving forward. 67, we had a massive yes.
Okay.
Where it really stems from is so that the Aboriginal people aren't recognised in the Constitution that we have right now. So we're saying that
they are not.
No. So they're saying that when they turned up to Australia,
but no
one was here.
What other people are in the Constitution then? If the indigenous people are not in the Constitution,
we weren't here. So
So in other words, the rest of the Australia are in the Constitution.
So when Captain Cook turned up, it was empty.
Yeah.
And he just brought.
According to them, it was empty.
Yeah, and that's what's in the Constitution right now.
Okay.
Yeah, is that it?
Okay, no. Maybe I'm thick. So okay. Call me thick. But anyway, so Captain Cook arrived. And a whole lot of white people came in. Okay, so they became citizens. So in other words, we are part of England.
British subjects.
Okay,
British.
So the people are British subjects.
And then people came here 2 years
and the
later.
indigenous people are nothing.
No, so
weren't here.
In other words, they are non-existent.
Non-existent.
Okay, all right. So now, where is it now?
If you were saying the vote would saying yes, there were Aboriginal people here. There were Torres Strait Islander people here. There were people here before they came.
That you can't change that. I mean, that's what happened.
That is exactly what
that's
happened.
the truth. Okay.
But right now, in our Constitution, that's not what we say is.
Okay. Now
so
that has to change. That has to change.
Yeah.
But if that's all that means, there's no problem. Is that all that it means?
That's really what it boils down to. Is we're saying yes, there were people here, and to rectify some of or to come up with some of the solutions, We're going to put in a board of Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
And there is laws.
From Northern Territory.
From
all
all over.
All over.
Communities all over will have a representative.
Now, here comes, it's an interesting question. I would like to know how much money has been spent on rehabilitation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Billions, maybe? Billions? Where did the money go? Did it go to useful purposes?
So that issue that you're talking about is exactly what The Voice is about. It's about accountability and transparency to where the money's going, how it's being spent, and independent community representation. So we know it's around the $40 billion a year, but more than half of that is spent on Indigenous people accessing mainstream services. So going to the doctor, going to the hospital. And that's because of the low socioeconomic and all of the health issues. And so a very small percentage of that's actually spent on Indigenous specific programs. So for the Commonwealth, it's about $5 billion a year. But most of that waste, so the Productivity Commission, they did a report most recently. So the audits and the reviews happen all of the time. Less than 30% of that money actually gets to the community. So it goes on public servants, it goes on the bureaucracies, it goes on flying people out to these communities, all of that. And so when we did the Uluru Sang from the Heart and the regional dialogues, all of those community people spoke about, we want to know where the money's going as well. We want change so our kids aren't, committing suicide, aren't doing all of those kind of things that we're talking about. And we want accountability. And so that's where The Voice is about answering exactly what you're talking about and putting the community in control.
If that's what you can achieve is fine. Again, to me, that is not evident from what I have, what information I've had, that's not the case. I think what you need more than anything else, maybe the word compassion, whether compassion come into politics or not, because it's a dog-eat-dog thing, it's either black or white, liberal or labor sort of thing. Somebody who's like a Mother Teresa, or maybe that's not the right terminology, but somebody, the heart, really the heart, because politicians, it's more mind than heart.
So for us, that's The Voice.
Pardon?
For us, for the regional dialogue and for the Indigenous community that have been working towards, that's what The Voice is about. Removing it from that political football where we get wedged.
So how do you choose the individuals? Have you got an individual who's above average? Meaning when I say without wanting to denigrate anybody, who has that special, like a Mahatma Gandhi, like a Mother Teresa, like
Well, there's probably a lot of people in our community that think that.
They think that, but no. But can you think of a name?
Not of a name, but I've met many of those kinds of people who dedicate their lives to working in community.
That's
what we're talking about electing. With this, what we would do is establish The Voice in the Constitution, which says that it exists, it can make representations, and that Parliament has control over it. And then the part where Parliament introduces the legislation is doing exactly what you're talking about. And so we've agreed to a process with government where the community would get to elect their own representatives and choose who they are. And that's exactly the kind of people we're talking about, what you're talking about.
Now, those people you're talking about, the individuals, who are they? Are they the Indigenous people?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
Are they self-evident or by their own outstanding qualities?
Their own communities would be choosing them.
They would nominate them. So how many of them would you have of them?
There is 32.
It depends. So there's a set of design principles from the government where they've said they'll go back to community and they'll talk to community. So there'll be there needs to be regional difference. So it works in places like the Northern Territory. So I've got family in Northeast Arnhem Land where English is their third and fourth language. So they'll have to have a different form of representation as to what mob here in Sydney or Redfern or somewhere else. And so it's structured so it enables the community itself to actually be in control of that process and elect them.
I mean, I think maybe my hesitancy was based on insufficient knowledge of how the whole thing works. I mean, hopefully you have people with the right mind and heart, and ability and the knowledge to make this a reality.
Absolutely.
If that's the case, I would have to overrule my heart and say yes.
There was another thing.
Because it is for me, it's a heart and mind thing, and the coincidence of me being playing the part of an indigenous person in 1967. I mean, it's almost serendipitous.
Yeah.
Looking at it now, it's kind of weird. But so I for me, it will be difficult for me now to say no. So I mean, I would have to do more homework, and I would. I'm not being flippant about it.
No.
But I mean, I wished there was a way of doing it without looking as a race of people are being advantaged.
Yep.
In other words, that's the principle, meaning we're all born equal.
Yep.
Like the American, the Gettysburg Address with Abraham Lincoln, where we're all equal. But this contradicts that.
Yeah.
So the equality argument here is what we're actually doing with equality is extending equality and the rule of law to Indigenous rights and interests that have been ignored previously.
Okay. I mean, you are the lawyer. You can tell me whether that is
that's
kosher.
that is what. So that's what. So the fundamental idea of representative democracy as well is that when decisions are made about you, you should be represented and you should have a say.
Yeah.
And so the government makes decisions about Indigenous people that impacts us differently because of our history and our place as First Peoples, but because of that inequality and disadvantage as well. And so all this is doing, it's not special rights, it's not changing citizenship, it's not taking anything away. It's just establishing a mechanism so that our voices can be heard when those decisions are being made about us.
So why does it seem as though a race of people are being given an extra push? Why does it seem that way?
I think it seems...
Is there any way of doing it without making it look like that?
I think it seems that way because of what we spoke about before about politics. People in politics have decided to make this issue a divisive one by challenging it and arguing on that point. Whereas, the history of Indigenous rights, we're the only country in the former British Empire anyway that doesn't have an agreement with Indigenous people and doesn't have recognition and doesn't provide.
So this is purely just to have an agreement?
It's to have a body, so when decisions are being made about us, we get to have a say. Okay. That's it. There's nothing else to it.
Okay.
And there already is legislation with Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. There's always been.
At the end of the day, I'm here to help rather than hinder. If the yes vote helps, so be it. I mean.
So I think what you said about heart and mind is really important, and it's what's guided me through this.
Yeah.
So as an Aboriginal person, my heart, I think of my nan, who was born in 1930.
Yeah.
So she's 92 this year.
Yeah.
7 years after she was born, there was a meeting of what they called the protectors, who were responsible for our people on the missions and reserves. Yeah. And their solution to the Aboriginal problem, that's what they called us, the Aboriginal problem, was to breed us out, so that we would no longer exist. So they controlled our marriages, they restricted
it was a deliberate attempt to wipe out the original.
Yeah, so they said the future of our people was what they called our ultimate absorption. So they would restrict the full bloods into reserves, and then they would put the half-castes and assimilate into society, and we would no longer exist.
I didn't know that. So where, as it stands now, how many are actually not polluted? I mean, what percentage of the population?
We don't know.
Pardon?
We don't measure that anymore.
No. But okay, you don't measure it. If you had to measure it, hypothetically, if you had to measure it, would it be?
It would be predominantly in areas that were less impacted by colonialism.
Okay.
So where my family are from, we first came into contact with white people in the 1830s.
Yeah.
So when my family were living on missions in the early 1900s, people in Queensland were still experiencing frontier conflict and being shot and chased off. So you're looking at areas like far north Queensland, the Northern Territory, Western Australia, but also West New South Wales. So Broken Hill, Wilcannia, Walgett, out that way.
Okay.
Eddie's the expert here. Why don't you give us what are the top benefits for the voice?
Recognition, number one, which is a long outstanding issue of the place of Indigenous people, and that impacts the kind of relationship we have. Yeah. So the nature of our relationship's been poor for a very long time, and that's why bad decisions, poor policy decisions, money continues to be wasted. So having that recognition, restarting our relationship, and us actually being at the seat, or having a seat at the table when decisions are being made, means we're actually going to be able to be included and have some change and drive that forward. That'll have an immediate impact on all of the things that matter to our people to make real change. And we're not just talking about the big symbolic things that people talk about, but housing, running water in communities. So I work very closely with the Yarrabah community. They still have lead and copper in their water systems, and they're having to ship in bottled water for their school kids.
That's the same in Walgett. Same in Walgett. Yeah. The water is at the high salt content up there. Yeah. Which is crazy, and because there's no government level that salt can be, so they just say that it's fine. It's fine for them to drink. They send out a letter during the summer. You're not allowed to put it through the air conditioner because it might damage the aircon. Yeah. But you can drink it.
Yep. And they're the kind of things. So my uncle and auntie passed away in their 50s. Our people died 30, 40 years before they should. Generationally, they're missing out. They're the kind of things that will have an immediate impact on not only changing the nature of our relationship, and then the practical things on the ground about driving that forward.
Now, their span of life was longer before. What changed for them not to exist?
Diet. Well, the genocide that happened, but diet especially.
Were they forced to eat things?
Yes.
They were forced to eat things they didn't want.
So where my family were forced to live on a reserve, we've got
I see. So in other words, they couldn't eat their normal things.
So you get the ration book would have meat, sugar, and flour. And so sugar was introduced to the diet, which never existed beforehand.
Oh, really?
And then alcohol also. Yeah. And then
alcohol was poison, of course. Yeah.
And then sugar. We only ever had natural sugars. Yeah. From fruit. And so those diets and being restricted in that way has had generational impacts.
No. I think there is so much to learn, really. And I can't believe I've waited like 70 years nearly to know. When I first came here, I was never aware of an Indigenous people for the first few years.
Well, my nan's a big fan, so she's been aware of you for a long time.
She might have. I can't believe I've waited 70 years to hear about the Indigenous people. Better late than never. Yeah. But can I share with you my thoughts about Australia? Okay. If you ask me what is Australia to me, it's the house I live in, my neighbors down the street, the proud and smiling faces of the people that I meet, children in the playground, Christmas in the sun, the g'day and the handshake. That's Australia to me. The town I live in, the friends that I have found, the people who just came here from nations all around, those who built this country, the air of feeling free, and the right to speak your own mind. That's Australia to me. Words of Banjo Patterson, McCullough, and Henry Lawson. The deeds of Donald Bradman, Dick Estella, and Dame Joan. There's Smithy and Ben Lexon, achievers without peers, and the dreaming of a people who've been here 1,000,000 years. This land I live in, the goodness everywhere, a place of wealth and beauty, with enough for all to share. Yes, I love this Sunburn country. So vital, young and free, with a promise for tomorrow that's Australia to me. But it's the people, especially the people. That is Australia to me.
Unreal.
All right? I just made that up.
Oh, I love that. Yes. All right. We'll talk about
go ahead.
special people before, like Mother
Yeah.
Teresa, and having special people carry a message.
Yeah.
What would be a special message that you could give the people?
Love and be loved in return. As simple as that.
Love that. Yeah. So when we started this, you're uncertain, you're undecided, your heart and your mind were saying two different things.
Yeah.
Where are you at now?
Yeah, I think the mind is overriding everything because the mind controls everything, including the pump, the heart. So the mind is saying yes, and the mind is, if it's going to deprive the heart of blood, so I had better say yes.
I wanted to,
Pardon?
if it's okay, to show you a short video of Bob Hawke, because I noticed you shared the quote of Bob Hawke from his bicentenary speech.
Yeah.
But I think there's a really important context to that speech where he speaks about Indigenous peoples before it.
Yeah.
And there's a short video from that same year in 1988 where Bob Hawke was gifted the Barunga Statement in the Northern Territory. And he spoke about his commitment to a treaty with Indigenous people, but he also spoke about his commitment to recognition.
Is that available on the?
Yeah, I'm going to show you right now.
Yeah.
So Bob made the bicentenary speech on Australia Day 1988, and this speech was made on the 12th of June that same year in 1988, and it talks about the importance of recognition of Indigenous people.
What we have witnessed here today has been historic for two reasons. You have given us the opportunity of seeing the survival and the renewal of your great tradition. But the second thing that we have seen today is, I believe, truly historic. Because I have had the opportunity, as you have witnessed, to sit there with your leaders, and they have put to me proposals with which I have been able to agree. And those proposals that they have put and with which I have agreed are these: that there shall be a treaty negotiated between the Aboriginal people, the government on behalf of all the people of Australia, and that we would expect and hope and work for the conclusion of such a treaty before the end of the life of this Parliament. The non-Aboriginal people of Australia will recognise the injustices of the past, will recognise the obligations that we have to create an Australia in which your culture and tradition will not only be able to survive, but to flourish, within which the Aboriginal and the non-Aboriginal Australians will be able to live together, truly in peace and in dignity, in a situation in which we will respect one another, and in an Australia in which you, with all other Australians, will be able to live the life that you desire. It's been too long, far too long, in achieving or even being able to think that we will reach that position. But I do truly believe that as a result of what's been happening recently, in large part of what we've been able to do today, it's my belief that really now for the first time we can expect that sort of outcome to which I've referred. Thank you.
So is that available?
Yep.
Why is it not? Why is it not?
Because the No campaign
Yeah.
have used that quote that you put up on Twitter to
kill the other.
yes, and so John Howard's also used that quote.
Okay.
And-
So why wasn't this pushed as a countermeasure?
So the Yes campaign have been pushing it. You probably just haven't come across it.
Seen it.
And that's one of the problems we're struggling with at the moment about trying to get space and traction against the No campaign.
The other thing is now, and this is I'm not just a it's something that was put to me. It appears all the multinationals are in favor of the yes vote. What have they to gain by that?
Well, I think you put it on Twitter today, wealth. But the thing is, corporate.
What did I put?
You put on Twitter today or yesterday about what have the multinationals got to gain, and it might be wealth. I think it's corporate social responsibility. So they want to be seen to be good actors in a community.
So because there's a yin and yang for everything.
Yeah.
Because with big corporations, it's money.
So even the mining and resource sector, the Aboriginal community has a very complicated relationship with them because they destroy Aboriginal cultural heritage and they dig up our land. Yeah. But in a lot of places, Northern Territory, Western Australia, North Queensland, the mining sector is also the biggest employer of Indigenous peoples. So it's a very complicated relationship.
No. Only because I get information from left and right.
And for people in the Yes campaign, as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we don't have anything. We don't have an economic base to be able to run a campaign from. So we've had to go to philanthropy and ask people to donate for what we see as being a vision of a better future for Australia.
But I think you hit a really good point there is the misinformation that's out there. It's important to know everything. So to question and to come and ask and find out is a great idea.
Okay. If through our discussion that I am convinced that I should go to a yes vote because it is a positive thing to do. I don't think I would achieve anything by voting no. Given what I have learned about the Indigenous society in the last few days, really, and if there is good that I can do, and I would rather do it now than regret it some other time. But most of all, love and be loved in return. That's the main thing. Love the people, and that's what life is all about.
There's something from the Uluru Statement from the Heart, where the voice comes from, that was issued at Mutijulu at Uluru in 2017. And we always talk about it, and Arnie Pat, who's one of our co-chairs, talks about it being an invitation to the Australian people to be able to walk together. And it's about love. It's not a list of grievances, it's not a list of issues. It's about, hey, come and join us in this 65,000 years of culture and celebrate that together, and let's do this so we can move forward. And it's all about love. Exactly what you're saying.
Actually, I have never taken part in a protest of any kind. I've done my own one way of thing by claiming why so many people are unkind. But that's the actual thing. Why so many people? Not why people are unkind. Why so many people are unkind? That's what I sang in a song in 1977 on the Bob Hope Show. But that has been corrupted to why are people so unkind? That's not what I said, because it is some people who are unkind, not all people. Why? Anyway, so when there is a march, for the first time in my life, if my back improves, I can't be in as one of the marchers. Maybe I could be on a chair or something, or on a bike.
No.
Is that allowed if you're marching on a bike? I mean, not a bike, a chair.
We just had massive walk for yes across the country, including in New York and London as well, expats.
Wow.
And there were plenty of people in chairs being pushed, being carried around as well.
Okay. So hip hip hooray.
Kamahl, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet you today and to be able to talk to you. And before I was talking about when your analogy about heart and mind is so important, and for me, the heart as an Aboriginal person and my mind as a constitutional lawyer, I've dedicated 6 years of my life to this process, and nothing's never been more important to me for this country, for my people, and for our future. So I just really want to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you today about this.
I mean, I think, I've learned from you as well, because there's so much misinformation. There is a lot of pollution, really. I think maybe being too corny, but love conquers all. I mean, if there was enough love, we can overcome everything. I mean, the love of land, love of people, love of family.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for everything that you've done today. It's been amazing. Can I give you a hug, Mark?
Okay, okay, all right.
Love.
Careful, don't crush me.
Of course.
Bigger and
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Authorised by D. Illich, It's Not a Race, Surrey Hills.